Uvagut, Quyanaq, Qaikaffi, Pangma, Nunaptingnun, Atiga, Margaret Nuxan Elias. Welcome to Where We Live Now. My name is Margaret Nuxan Elias. On today's show, we have elder from Dukdayakduk, from Tuk, Frank Pokiak. How are you, Frank?
I'm doing fine.
Yeah?
Glad to be here.
The way we like to start out every single show, the way I like to start every single show is for our guests to introduce themselves the exact same way they would talk as if they were talking to an elder. So just letting us know who you are, where you're from, who your family is, and where they're from.
Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Frank Pokiak. I was actually born in Banks Island, 1952, and my father moved back to Tuk 1954, I think, when I was 2 years old. So I resided in Tuk all my life.
Yeah.
Grew up in Tuk hunting, going to school. Yeah.
And who's your family?
My family is a Pokiak family, and my mother actually had bared 22 kids, and there was 18 or 19 of us survived. So we had a big family, and not only that, she actually adopted a couple of kids even after that.
Yeah.
So we have a really big family.
And what were your parents'
And I
names?
think you would have been part of it. just to point out, my mother actually took your dad when he was a baby and kept him for a couple of years. But when Mabel and John got married, Mabel took him back. So you probably would have been related to us too.
I've heard this story a lot. My dad actually named me. My Inuvalakto name,
you're named after my mother.
Yeah, Igalik.
Yeah, so.
And who are your parents?
My parents is Bertram and Lena Pokiak. My mother's parents was the Quyanaq family, and it's a big family. That he came from Wainwright in Alaska, so we have a lot of descendants in Alaska.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so both your parents are from Alaska?
My grandmother too. She was a seamstress. Violet Quyanaq was a seamstress in a ship.
Oh, okay.
In one of the ships, and apparently, from what I heard, my grandfather met her in Bailey Island.
Oh, okay.
And took her off the ship.
Oh, okay.
That's from my understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were born in Banks Island, but you grew up in Tuk. Did you ever go back to Banks Island?
I've been there a few times with my job.
Yeah.
And a couple of times for work, and a couple of times for a conference where one of the conferences when COPE first started I was pretty young, and my mother was there too, so I actually went, and she actually showed me where I was born in a tent
wow.
while we were there. Yeah.
Where was the tent? Sorry, I just know.
It's right, you know where the police barracks are?
Yeah.
In that area where Fred Carpenter had a house
Had
right
his
on top of that
house,
little
yeah,
hill.
yeah.
And then where Vernon Amos used to keep his dogs.
Yes.
Right there.
Yeah.
My mother said they
close
used
to
to
where
have a
the
tent right there, yeah.
Yeah, close to the complex
Yeah.
where it is now, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. So you grew up in Tak, in Dukdayaktuk.
Yes, I grew up there.
Yep. And when I was reading your bio that your daughter sent over, she talked about how you went to school for a little while, but then you stopped going to school?
Yeah, I went up to grade 4, and my father was having a hard time trying to trap because he was going blind. So he actually took me out of school to use my eyesight to go set his trap line with a dog team.
Yeah.
And that's where it all started. And we traveled a certain distance, and then he would stop, and he would describe a hill to me. He said, "Does this hill look like this?" And I said, "Yeah, it looks exactly like that." So he told me which way to go. So that's how I traveled the first couple of years with my dad.
Yeah.
You know, and trapping foxes and going out fishing to a place called Quyanaq. It was 12 miles. It seemed like further than that when we were growing up because we had a dog team, right?
Yeah.
And that was part of my life, going to school.
Yeah.
Taking care of the fish net, taking care of the dogs. Me and my brother James, we'd have to haul all our wood. And we couldn't play with our friends until we chopped wood and bring ice in after school.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to mingle with our friends until all that is done. Right after school, we'd have to go home and do our chores. And then we're free to go after we did our chores.
Oh, okay.
But the weekends were spent hauling wood and going to Quyanaq to look at fish nets for the dog food.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we'd keep nuts out there till February. Eh?
Oh, okay.
And once in a while we'd miss 1 week, and when we get there, the ice would be 6.5 feet thick, and no augers. You had to do it with a chisel.
Yeah.
So it took us most of the day just to chisel through.
Yeah.
To look at the net.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the amount of strength that took.
Yeah, you had to have, you know, you had to you had to be built pretty good.
Yeah.
And the logs we used to haul, me and my brother, we'd have to dig them out. In the wintertime, they're buried. All you'd see is stump.
Yeah.
And we'd have to dig them out with a shovel.
Yeah.
And pry them up and saw them up.
All by hand.
So it took a lot of physical work, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, and some days we'd haul logs like this, you know, cut them, and we'd use those big
saws.
Saws.
Yeah.
You know? I can't remember what they call those big saws. You know, that's what we'd use to cut them. So we did a lot of physical work when we were growing up.
Yeah. Well, you guys had a big family.
Yeah, we had a big family, and you know, no running water, no power, so you know.
That being said, though, my dad did tell me that you guys had the biggest house.
It seemed like the biggest house,
Yeah.
because it was a pretty good size.
He
house.
said you had 2 bedrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good size, you know, for a big family, but it seemed big anyway, even for me, you know. Yeah.
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 So you guys all had your own chores you had to do?
Oh yeah, we had to do daily chores, you know, otherwise we won't be able to mingle with our friends,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so this was when you were really young, and when you started getting older, did you start traveling? Like?
Yes, I was still going to school when my brother-in-law, John Pascal from Aklavik, my sister Rosie, he called my dad and asked if one of us could go to Aklavik to hunt caribou, because caribou just reached the foothills in Aklavik, and he wasn't capable of hunting himself because he just came out from the hospital with TB, recovering from TB. Both my sister and her husband, they just both got back, and so I was the one my dad chose to go to Qaikaffi to go and harvest caribou. So that's where I spent my time. I was 15 years old when he took me out of school and sent me across there to hunt caribou.
How was that like?
It was amazing. I've never seen caribou before, and my first experience was I went out with my brother-in-law and Alec Irish. Alec Irish, he was one of the elders, but he had really thick glasses, just like binoculars. And he was the first two people I went out with. We went down below towards Archie's place. It's about 5 miles from Qaikaffi, and we went to the foothills to go hunting, and we encountered a herd of caribou, about 100 caribou. First time I ever see caribou that much, and what they did was they went to this creek, and they told me to drive around the herd quite a ways from them, and try drive the herd to them, So I did that. I made a big circle, and I went on the other side of them, and I started going towards them. Figured they're going to start moving towards Alec and my brother-in-law. And I started getting closer and closer, and the herd just stood there. And so I got kind of close, so I stopped. And when I stopped, they started coming to me. I got kind of, because I don't know what to expect, I got kind of ticklish, all right. But I took my gun out. I took my gun out that my dad gave me, a 30-06 Springfield. I started shooting, and I shot 6 caribou. So after I shot them, I went and get my brother-in-law, and they said, "What happened? How come those caribou never come?" I said, "I shot 6 of them." And they were really happy, because they didn't have to do anything. And we just gathered them up, and we actually made a round trip to Qaikaffi, back to Qaikaffi. We actually were going to camp out, but we hauled them all together. And it was kind of funny, because while we were skinning, all of a sudden a bombardier started coming. You see a bombardier coming out in the distance. And they saw us, so they came over to ask us where the caribou was. It was Bobby Grubin and Joe. I remember Bobby Grubin and Joe Quyanaq. They were hired by the government to go and hunt caribou for the community. With a bombardier. So that was really surprising. I didn't expect to see anybody from Tuck. So that's how it all started, And I spent 4.5 years with my sister, living with my sister there. But did mostly hunting. And it was kind of funny. I was young, and I used to try and find work, when I'm not hunting. And I worked for Joe Silaotsiak, one of my dad's relatives. He had a contract for the government cutting cordwood for the elders in Qaikaffi to that road from Qaikaffi to the foothills. There's a trail, cat trail. So he hired me to cut cordwood. He would pay me $25 a cord.
Wow!
And he'd get $75 from the government. So I cut all the cordwood for him. That was one of my jobs. And that's a lot of physical work. A lot of packing. I had to pack them and bring them to the side of the road. And later on, Shorty Wilson, he had a cat with a sleigh in it. He'd go up there and throw all the wood onto the sleigh and haul it back to town. But that's what I did for one winter. And not only that, to make a little bit more money, I used to cut ice blocks for the church and for the Northern Store and for the Roman Catholic. Cut ice after freeze up. with a saw.
Yeah.
And it had to be 2 feet wide and 3 feet long. And that's a lot of work. They'd pay me 50 cents a block.
Oh,
but
my goodness.
It was, you know, there's so much, it seemed like so much money at the time.
Back then, long
Back
ago,
then.
it must have been a lot of money.
So that's things I did. You know, I worked for Ronald's store part-time, just like you. I had about 3 or 4 different jobs in town, you know, not long, like maybe a few hours, huh?
Yeah.
And I'd be hauling honey bucket bags for Ronald's store. He used to have a cat with a sleigh in it with 45 gallons. And we'd pick up all the honey buckets in town.
Honestly.
So that's another thing that I did. And also I would cut wood for Lyle Trimble.
Yeah. So you were just always busy.
So I was always busy.
How you got so tall? It sounds like you were always going like
I
that.
don't know. It's just, I don't know. You know. But it was a good time. I enjoyed my life in the cloud.
4 years you were there for.
I was happy. I made a lot of good friends right away. You know. You know, one of my first friends that I ran into was Dougie Irish. You know, he passed away. You know, and he was one of my really, really good friends. I remember him. He was a stock boy at Hudson Bay, and he actually went to work with a dog team.
Yeah.
He had his dogs tied behind the
store.
store.
Yeah. That's how you traveled, I guess, back then, if you didn't want to walk.
It's really strange. He's got dog team behind. Instead of a skidoo, he's got a dog team to go back and forth to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
So this was like age 15 to 19? When did you, my next 2 questions are going to be, when did you meet Nellie? Because my whole life, I've always seen you guys, you and Nellie in Ranger Point, because I grew up in Ranger Point, and you guys were always out whaling, or hunting, or camping all the time. The times I actually saw you guys was coming and going.
Yeah,
that's when I would
you spent a lot of time with us.
Yeah, when I was really young.
Yeah, siblings, yeah. But we were friends all through school.
Oh, okay.
You know, I was 2 years older than her, and apparently she used to tell her friends that she used to point at me when she was about 9 or 10 years old and said that this is the person I'm going to marry.
Aww.
You know, she would tell her friends that, and you know, and her wish came true, I guess.
Yeah.
But we started dating when we were 19. I was 19 years old and she was 17.
Oh, okay. When you went back to Tuck?
Yeah, when I went back to Tuck. Yeah. And we got married when I was 20.
Yeah.
She was 18. Yeah, we had one child before we got married. Her name was Phoebe. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And then, can you tell me a little bit about where your camps were? Because I know you had quite a few, like in different places.
Well, we used to camp, like, it's another thing I used to trap in. When I got back to Tuck after we got married, I trapped in that country. Even before that, I trapped in that country, eh? And that's how I made my living. Trapping when we first got married. Oh no, I shouldn't say that. I had a job with oil companies before that.
Yeah.
But then when they started moving out, I had to find some other source of work. So I went back to trapping, and I did that for a number of years. And we'd trap in 500 Lake, and I'd have her there, and in Inuit, along the coast, all, you know, Toka Point, Warren Point, a lot of different places. We spent a lot of time in Anderson River with her in the springtime hunting geese.
That's quite far.
Oh yeah, that's quite far. That's 100 air miles, eh? That's about 120, 25 miles by skidoo.
Yeah.
And we'd spend time even in Mason River hunting geese, eh? You know, and I went and showed her where she was actually born in Silaotsiak.
Oh.
It's quite a ways up Anderson River.
Yeah.
She wanted to find out where she was born, so one spring I brought her to her dad's cabin, because we used to We used to have a frame tent, or not frame tent, but we used to have a base camp there, Billy and I, when we trapped. So we had a base camp right outside where he had a log house. Silaotsiak had a log house. So one spring, I actually brought Nellie there just to show her.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to show, because she wanted to know where she was born.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then she was raised around Stanton, you know, until everybody from Stanton moved back to Tuck.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful country, you know. I always wondered how come there's no settlement in that area. Because it's such a gorgeous river. And man, you got everything there too.
Lots of land?
Lots of wildlife.
Oh.
And you should encounter, if you ever, the conies that come out from that river is unbelievable. It's crazy.
I've heard stories about this.
It's just like a seal, adult seal, you know. And I couldn't believe it because they're so humongous, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. When we trapped there, Billy still had a dog team. Like we trapped with Skidoos, but he had a dog team just in case. So we'd have to fish for the dogs, huh? Right in the mouth of Anderson River. And some of the conies are so big, they can't fit in a 45. You have to cut them in 3 different pieces.
Oh my goodness.
So they could fit properly inside a 45-gallon drum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But we'd cut off the heads, and we'd use the heads for bait for a deadfall.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We'd cut the heads off to use for bait for deadfalls for catching the wolverine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, and you guys always went out to Hendrickson.
Yeah. I spent, through the years, I spent 13 years in Hendrickson Island. They were looking for somebody to do a project to check for contaminants and, you know, keep track of our harvest because of the pressure, you know, that we had from anti-animal rights, you know. We have to prove to them that the population is healthy. Yeah. Well, we always knew it was healthy, you know, but DFO didn't really think there was that much belugas out there. And they were trying to sort of put restrictions, but we didn't want any. Because, look, if you think about it, and when Nunagijavut existed, Nunagijavut, it's called, there was about 2,000-3,000 people that lived in Nunagijavut alone, bigger than Tuck right now. And in one day they would harvest 100 quails. And if the population was going to be harmed, it would have been harmed then.
Yeah.
You know? That's how I see it. You know, and right now we're lucky to get 30, 40 whales a year. You know, not even a little touch of it, eh?
Yeah.
And then they'd get 200, 300 whales a year, you know.
30 makes sense, though, because there's only about, what, 800-900 people in Tuck?
Yeah.
So that makes more sense.
But when I first, it's kind of funny just to get back. When I first started the project, I'd sample over 100 whales a year.
Yeah.
And then through the years, it slacked down. And now they're averaging about 40 a year.
Do you think it's because people don't eat it as much as they used to?
No, I think some of them realize the weather is too hot, eh?
Oh,
and
okay,
their milk spoil. So they start trying to wait for a later season, like later in the season to harvest. And by then, the whales get pretty smart.
Yep.
You know, they get pretty sneaky.
Yeah.
They're really bad. You know, you can't see, like it could be only about 4 or 5 feet deep and you can't see the whale.
Yeah.
You know, because it's so muddy. And the whale will turn around in a dime. You know?
Oh, okay.
You know, if you get too close to it and then you lose it and you know, you don't know where it's going to come up. So they get smart. They start doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I did that project for 13 years and I taught quite a bit of people how to do it. And actually, the whale monitor they had this summer, it was one of the students I taught.
Oh, okay.
Nunaptingnun,
yeah.
you know, so he was out there all summer.
Yeah.
So that's good, you know.
It is.
Yeah.
I remember when I'd listen to stories from Nellie, she would come back from when you guys would pull up with a boat and I'd just be on that side of the block and I remember she would say, "So much bugs."
Oh,
She
man.
said, "Can't even see the person in front of you."
In some days it's true.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen the mosquitoes hatch. It was damp out
Yeah.
in early morning, and I went out to relieve myself, and I was looking towards land, and I called Ned. I said, "Boy, look at that black cloud. Looks like there's a fire. Big black cloud."
Yeah.
So we went down, and there was actually mosquitoes being born. The sky was just black and just moving.
Yeah.
Started coming towards us, so we ran in the tent, and you could hear the mosquitoes hitting the tent.
Crazy.
That's how bad it is, eh?
Yeah.
You know, I always wondered maybe that's where they should actually put a jailhouse there. Nobody would want to go back to jail.
So we were talking.
Sorry, I had to say that.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, I was talking to a couple of workers from Parks Canada, and they were talking about what's the purpose of the mosquito. And then they said only some mosquito bite, but other mosquitoes are pollinators. So they pollinate all of the land, which I guess we kind of need.
I don't know. I think all of them bite.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would never survive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how they get to that conclusion.
I don't know. That's just when we were just having a conversation.
Yeah.
Why are they around?
But we fed a lot of people when we were in Hendrickson. People get stranded, and we had an extra couple of tents and blankets where they could rest, you know, and we treated our elders. We never let an elder touch a whale. When they land a whale, we butcher. Well, everybody.
Yeah.
We never let people, if they don't want it, they don't have to butcher, right? I butcher them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where my grandson learned, eh? He was actually 9 years old when he butchered his own whale.
Wow.
Anthony.
So Anthony,
Yeah, he was 9 years old when he cut up a whole whale.
So he's who you've been teaching a lot lately.
Yes, he's turning out to be a pretty good hunter. Like I don't have to really go out if I don't want to. I go out now because I want to.
Yeah.
You know, but he harvests most of the animals that we get.
Yeah.
Caribou, whales, you know.
He was working for my dad for a while with dogs, so now he knows how to.
He loved working with dogs. You know?
Yeah.
Only thing I try and encourage Anthony is you can't miss work, you know. But But right now he's suffering working for the hamlet because he want to go hunting.
Oh yeah.
You know, he's that age where I want to hunt, you know.
Yeah.
And I said you have to choose between work and there's a time to hunt.
It's very
But
hard.
as soon as the water is dead calm,
Gone.
you just want to be gone. I mean,
It's a good thing you have a grandson to do that for you.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad he sent to harvesting. I was kind of disappointed. Like I want him to finish school too. I know school is important, right? But one of my friends, I talked to him about it, and I said, "Gee, I really want Anthony to go to school." And he was quiet for a while, and then he just looked at me and said, "You know, you should be happy you're teaching him how to live off the land.
Yep.
Because down the road, we don't know what's going to happen. At least he will know how to survive from the land."
Exactly.
He said he'll be one of the lucky ones that could do that.
That's how I
so
feel.
I quit being. I encourage him to hunt.
Yeah.
I quit trying, you know. Before that, I didn't really like it. I wanted to go to school, but after he talked to me, it made sense, you know. Yeah, and if that's what he wants to do, that's fine. I'm fine with it.
So,
you know.
In the middle of all of this, you were also the chair for the Inuvialuit Game Council. Is that the right IGC?
Inuvialuit Game Council. That's kind of funny, you know. I was trapping at the time when they settled our land claim, and I think it was 1986, 1985 or 86. I just come home from trapping, and I ran into Andy Carpenter, and they were looking for members for the Inuvialuit Game Council, and at the time he sort of picked each community who we wanted, really, you know, because everything was just being set up through the HTCs, eh?
Yeah.
You know, so nothing really was in place. So he asked me if I would be willing to sit on a game council. And I thought about it, and I said, well, Andy, you know, I don't really have an education. I don't think I'd be the right person. He looked at me and he said, you go out on the land trapping, hunting and trapping? I said, yeah. He said, you're perfect.
Yeah.
He said, that's what we're looking for, somebody that utilizes the land. That's what it's all about. And that's where Norm Snow came in. He set up the joint secretariat, all the structure.
Yeah.
Where he set up all the co-management boards, and that's how the game council got set up. Yeah, and I was involved since 1986.
My goodness.
For a little over 30 years, I was involved with the game council.
So you just recently retired
Just
then?
recently, about 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But I was the longest term chair.
Yeah.
I was chair for 12 years straight.
So you did a lot of traveling?
I did a lot of traveling. That's where I kind of hoped that I didn't, but most of my life I traveled. And I traveled all over the world with, talking about our wildlife and wildlife habitat. People, the countries that were interested in seeing how we manage our wildlife and the habitat. They were really interested, so that took me all over.
Yeah.
You know, and I think the one I couldn't get over is the one main one that I went on was to Durban in South Africa. They wanted me to speak on polar bear management, so I went over there just to speak on polar bear in Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
it was pretty cool.
Literally, you would just be like somewhere in the world and then come back home and then out on the land.
Yeah, that trip they picked me up with a plane in Hendrickson Island. I was doing the sampling in Hendrickson. DFO picked me up, or Game Council picked me up at the island with a float plane.
Yeah.
Went to Durban and then went back to the island. Never even went home.
Crazy.
Yeah, that was one of the trips that I went right from Hendrickson Island to Durban. Yeah.
So how you're enjoying retirement?
I'm really enjoying it, but I wish I lost my wife shortly after I retired, and you know, her and I were actually going to go and live at our cabin. Yeah. So that all changed, eh? I got a beautiful cabin out there that I built.
In Husky Lakes?
Yeah, across Husky Lakes, yeah. It's right in the tree line, eh? Yeah. You know, and it's a beautiful spot. Yeah, nice place for trapping for winter. Yeah. And actually, my grandson and one of his friends wanted me to teach him how to trap this winter.
Oh, cool.
So I might show them my trap line. Yeah. Yeah. So they could get started. They want to be partners trapping, huh?
You're going to have to teach them how to skin and stretch foxes.
He knows how to stretch everything. He knows how to do all that, but I never really let him trap, eh? Oh, you know, like full time, like a line. Yeah. You know, 50, 60 traps. And he wants to do that this year. Oh, okay. So hopefully, if I'm well enough, I'll do that.
My husband is Larry's son.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, and when he wanted to learn how to skin and stretch foxes, clean out my whole kitchen, garbage bag on the island, covering everything. I was just every other week. That's what him and my daughter were doing, just sitting there. And he's like, I'm going to work on foxes in the house. Yeah, go, just clean it. And it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. Yeah. You know, you got to make sure you don't spoil and you don't cut them up when you're skinning them, you know. Yeah. A lot of work flushing. Yeah. You know, so hopefully he'll enjoy it. Like he harvests everything, eh? Yeah. And he skins. I showed him how to do skinning and everything. Yeah. He harvests beavers and everything. Beavers? My grandson, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Otters, beavers.
Where do you get otters?
Right around my cabin.
Oh, there's otters that way?
There's lots of otters.
I had
lots
no
of otters
idea.
Around that area.
In Husky Lakes?
Yeah. Around my cabin, yeah.
Oh. Wow.
Just about every creek that you run into around my cabin have otters. Because they live underwater, huh?
Yep, they do.
They stay in water, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That's
but there is a lot. Yeah.
I know people from Tuck, they love going into the tree line, and they like to see the trees.
Oh, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I think we love going to the tree line.
Yeah.
Like I grew up trapping in the tree line in Anderson River. Huh? Billy and I used to trap close to Anderson River, folks, right from the mouth of Anderson. Huh?
Yeah.
And all the way to Bailey Island we trap, you know, and then down towards Franklin Bay, towards Politick. That used to be our trap line. And we used to go out just before freeze-up with a float plane and come back and get supplies just before Christmas, once before Christmas. Go home for Christmas for a few days and then head right back out.
Yeah.
And come back home to get more supplies in between Christmas and April when the trapping season is over.
How much walking have you done in your life?
Did a lot of walking. But
Sounds like a lot of walking, a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of physical work, eh?
Yeah.
It's all physical, but I was really fortunate because I don't like to clean house. I don't like to cook.
Yeah.
And things like that. So me and Billy, when we were trapping, that's what he did. He cooked and everything. I didn't have to touch nothing. All I did was haul wood, chop wood, and get ice.
Yeah.
And that was my job.
Yeah.
And his job was taking care of the tent and keep it clean. And so it was a pretty good deal for me.
Yeah, back then, yeah.
I didn't have to do any cooking. Everything is cooking. You know, I really enjoyed my time with Billy. Eh? He's a really bushman, you know.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah. Yeah. He actually started trapping too when he was about 14 or 15 years old on his own.
Oh, okay.
Billy.
So,
after he got out of residential, that's the stories he told me. Eh?
When did you stop trapping? Because I'm like 35, and I don't really remember trapping happening when I was a kid.
I think 1978 was the last time I trapped even after that, but from 1978 to 1985, I was in Cambridge Bay and all the Qaikaffi communities building houses. I was hired as a foreman. That's another thing I do is I build houses.
Yeah.
I can build a house from scratch, and I build a number of houses in Tuck.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of different jobs in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And I was hired as a supervisor building houses in the Eastern area.
Wow.
Yeah. And the main thing I enjoyed about it is the contractor, usually they hire people, but they don't take their families.
Oh, okay.
And they took my family, they paid for everything.
That's good.
You know, so I didn't have, they paid for the plane fares to go back and forth to Tuck when the jobs were done with my whole family. So I had my whole family with me.
So you went
and
to
I've never seen a contractor do that for people, never.
No.
You know, and but apparently I did such good work for them, they kept me.
Yeah.
You know, so I worked in Pelly Bay and Joe Haven, Spence.
Wow.
Coppermine.
So you got to see the
Cambridge
East
Bay.
Coast.
Yeah.
What was it like hunting over there?
It was pretty neat. I enjoyed hunting caribou and Pelly Bay. When I first went there, they had to fly everything in at the time. They had no BART services at the time, so they had to fly everything with a Herc. So when I went to Pelly Bay to do some work, there was nothing in the store, in the co-op. They were waiting for the plane to come in, you know, a Herc with their supply. But the first week, all we ate there was seals.
Oh my goodness.
There was a lot of seals, so we survived the first week just eating straight seal.
Honestly.
Yeah, so, but it was good. I didn't mind it. I was used to it.
Yeah.
You know, but my kids had to learn to eat it.
Yeah. Well, in Tuck we eat beluga.
Oh yeah,
so
it's just pretty well same thing.
Yeah. Going to Banks Island, because only now they're getting whales.
Yeah.
When I first went there, everyone was offering me seal, and I've never eaten seal in my life.
Yeah.
But in up that way, they usually eat a lot more seal. Yeah. Strange how belugas are going that way now.
They even started getting narwhal.
Narwhal.
A lot of narwhal, yeah.
Coming this way.
Well, They never reached us yet, but I know they went as far as Coppermine now. They start seeing narwhals. So never know.
I wonder if it tastes like
But
beluga.
I had a friend quite a few years ago. Lenny Inuvic harvested a whale in October. I think it was October 7th, if I'm right. And he towed it into tuck at the point, and when they were cutting it up, it had something in his forehead, about 2 inches.
Yeah.
It looked round, so when they checked it and started digging, it was a narwhal tusk embedded.
Yeah.
About 8
Into
inches
what?
long. Hey?
Into what?
Into like right in this spot here of a beluga whale.
Honestly.
Right in there. It broke off. A narwhal tusk was embedded in the head
Of a beluga
whale.
in tuck.
And there was nothing wrong with that whale. It was healthy.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
That's crazy. I think the only place that whale would come from was the east, because they have.
Well, they do. They go all the way that way now.
Narwhals, in the east. Yeah, because he did harvest a beluga whale with a narwhal tusk.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Maybe there's going to be a crossbreed.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
We're still kind of expecting to start seeing them anytime,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever hunted walruses?
I've never hunted walruses.
Not
I've
walrus?
known of only 2 walruses that were harvested around Tuck.
Yeah.
One was in Quyanaq by, I think it was Elephant's Woodrat.
Oh, okay.
And I think there was another one shot outside of Tuck. But I can't remember who shot that one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I only asked just because you went to the east a little bit. That's the one thing I like when I listen to stories and I'm talking to people. No one ever talks about walrus.
Yeah.
I guess I got to go to the east.
You got to go to either that or Alaska. They harvest a lot. That's funny.
Okay.
They harvest a lot of walrus in Alaska, and they hunt lots in the east. But a few years ago in Ulajuato, David Quyanaq actually harvested a walrus that was hauled up on top of the ice, not too far from.
That's
Ulu.
insane.
Yeah, it's
Our
amazing.
water's changing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way up there too, north of, in between Banks Island and Ulu, he harvested that walrus. So that's the only one that I really know that,
Yeah, they hardly go in between Banks Island and Ulajuato. Yeah, no, I don't.
Yeah.
Never hear stories much anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I traveled a lot in my life with trapping. I think Anderson River is the most beautiful country there is.
Out of everywhere you've seen.
Everywhere I've seen, I would just daydream, like Billy showed me everywhere all the white trappers trapped.
Yeah.
All the way up Anderson River, I would stop and he'd tell me this white trapper trap here and that. I'd just daydream,
Yeah.
It was amazing what the people would do long ago, and they would have to get enough supplies to last them right till the trapping season is over.
Yeah, and it's far.
Yeah.
I've been to Husky Lakes, and when I was a kid in Nunavik, I've never gone as far as Mason or Anderson. As my
Beautiful
dad always
country.
said, it was so far away.
Yeah. Horton River is beautiful too.
Horton River?
Horton River,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful country.
Actually, I hear a lot of stories from your nieces and nephews about Horton. Yeah, your family going that way?
Yeah. Yeah. But it's beautiful country too, that country.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only problem, close to there, it depends on the wind at Smoking Hills, it's pretty hard on the nostrils.
They really do
strong.
smoke?
Oh yeah, they smoke steady. When Billy and I trapped,
Yeah.
we used to set traps not too far from them, going toward Franklin Bay. When I get cold, I used to run up the bank and warm up.
That's insane.
Just like in a campfire.
Is it like a spring, like a hot springs?
No,
What
it's
is it?
some kind of what they call it,
Chemical reaction.
sulfur or something.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's burning steady.
Yeah, because my dad, I've heard my dad talk about smoking hills. I just didn't know it actually smoked.
It does smoke. Actually, one time, me and my buddy Lenny were hunting wolves one time. We were really bad to hunt wolves that couple of years. There was so much.
Yeah.
You know, we'd go out and stay out till we ran out of gas or smokes. We both used to smoke that time. And now I used to kick myself because I quit smoking 1984. But at the time, we used to have extra gas and wolves howling and run out of smokes. We used to go home.
Even with the wolves howling.
Now I think about it, geez.
Yeah.
Both of us think about it. Eh? But that one trip, it was really strong smell. Nice, it was a little bit of wind, south wind. We decided to follow that scent, you know, with skidoos. And we traveled and traveled and traveled, and you could still smell it. And it was in Smoky River. And we found a spot where the hills were smoking.
Yeah.
From that same thing as the smoking hills, eh? And you could see it coming out of the ground. And I got too close to it to sniff. I just about blacked out. Eh? You know, I went right close and I took a big whiff and just about fell back. And anyway, it was kind of funny because we decided to go into the river, slide down, and just check it out. And we went down into the river, way up somewhere. And we couldn't climb out. It was so windy, so crooked. We had to follow it all the way close to the mouth. Probably took us about 5 hours to go down. But anyway, on our way down, in one spot, we always hear about gold. Yeah. Gold in Smoke River, people looking for gold. So in this one spot, there was lots of big boulders that fell off the cliffs into the river. So we stopped and took out thermos, and Lenny said, let's look for gold. So we took our axe and we were chopping, looking, chipping them. And while we were doing that, Lenny, just like in the cowboy movies, Lenny looked at me and said, Frank, I said, what? He said, if we find gold, I'm going to kill you. You know? Yeah. Just out of the blue, you know, just kidding me, but you know, just like the movie, so I'm going to kill you. He said, if we find gold, I'm going to kill you.
As if people wouldn't know he has gold and you don't come back.
It was kind of comical, Yeah. We had a lot of good times, Sim and I. Yeah. We actually got drifted out on our first polar bear hunt. Him and I, we spent couple of days drifting around on a chunk of ice. How
scary.
It is. We thought we were dead. No radios that time. We had no way to communicate that we were floating around.
On your skidoos?
On skidoos. One of our first polar bear hunts together. It was so, I don't know if I have time to tell it.
You do? Yeah.
Anyway, maybe I should, because that was one of the things on my mind that I thought about it. And Lenny and I, when the oil companies first started drilling offshore, there was some rigs out there, out in the ocean. And Lenny and I, we lived next door to each another right across Kitty Hall. We decided to finally go on polar bear together, and we were packing up, and we were just about ready to go when Bert Kamixana popped by with a skidoo. I said, what you guys doing? He said, we're going to go hunt polar bear. Bert hunt polar bear lots, eh? He said he just came back from Vancouver. He was training to be a deckhand in Vancouver. He just got back to Tuck, floating around in a ship. He said, wait for me, I'll go with you guys. So we said, okay, because it's his experience. So we waited for him, and he packed up, and anyway, we took off, 3 of us. And we boarded Jim Cockney's little dog, or guard dog. We picked it up on our way, and we took off, and we traveled towards Pullen Island. And we traveled right to the rig where the ice was moving, And we camped there one night in the main ice where it was nice and solid. Next day we decided to head east towards Warren Point. And we don't know how far we were traveled out, eh? We traveled and traveled. It looked like solid ice you were on. Bert said it was solid ice. It looked kind of yellowish color anyway. So we thought it was old ice, land-passed ice. We kept traveling all that day, and then we camped out there that night. Next day we looked around for polar bear. We didn't get any. Next morning, for some reason, we decided to go towards the land. And we were wondering, how come it's so black towards the land? Just black cloud when we got up. And that's a good thing. For some reason, we finally cooked breakfast. And we all ate a big breakfast. We never ate breakfast. All we do is smoke and have a tea or coffee. And we're ready to go. But this time we decided to eat. And all that time, we didn't realize we were going to have a really hard day, you know. So we started going through the rubble, kind of high ice, going through rubble. Yeah. Trying to find a spot to get out of there. And heading towards the cloud. In the meantime, what we did was we wanted to know where Tuck was. Yeah. And we had a transmitter radio. We started moving that radio around. And when it got loud, you're right in the middle. Tuck is straight in the middle of the radio, so we know which way Tuck was. It was like a compass, eh? You know? We didn't have no GPS or no radio. And anyway, we started traveling, and we encountered this wide crack. It was open. Gee whiz, how are we going to cross it? We didn't know what to do. There's no way to go across it, so we started cutting chunks of ice, big chunks of ice, and throwing them into that crack. Yeah. And we made a bridge. Oh, wow. With that broken, and we managed to all go across. Lenny, Bert, and then me behind them. We managed to cross that one, and then we encountered really rough ice, and we could see smooth ice not too far from us, eh? We were trying to reach that smooth ice, and finally we got close to it, breaking through, probably an hour, trying to go to that smooth ice. And anyway, it was just smooth as far as you could see. It was smooth. It was young ice about a foot thick. And we got through it, and Bert and Lenny took off. And I was still trying to go through the rubble ice, and I was behind them a little bit. Yeah. And I saw a crack about 4 inches in front of me when I was crossing. And my skidoo just got across that crack, and I heard just like a gunshot. Oh my god. Something like that. Yeah. And when I looked, I was driving. My sled just went in the water a little bit, but it was enough on ice to come back out. And that crack that was about 4 inches was about from here to about the hospital, that wide already.
Holy cow.
It was that wide already split up.
Yeah.
And if I was a second floor, I would have been on the other side. Yeah. And I would have been alone. But we traveled, and gee whiz, you start seeing open water and big whitecaps where we're going.
Oh my gosh.
And after a while, we couldn't go anymore because we reached the edge. And we looked back to see, we would go back to that solid ice we just left. But it was black too, right around us. So we were on this huge chunk of ice floating. And man, we never been so scared in our life, me and Lenny, eh? You know, we didn't know what to think. We just, our skidoos were away from the edge. We were sitting on our skidoos, and crazy, a helicopter came by while we were sitting down. See a helicopter coming, so I grabbed I was digging for my pen, my flare. Yeah. And you know, I used to practice when nothing is around, my flare, shoot some flares. And at this moment, it couldn't work. Man, that chopper disappeared on us, huh?
Oh Oh my gosh.
And we really felt hopeless, like really hopeless. The waves, the wind was coming from the shore. And Bert, me and Lenny was just sitting side by side with our skidoos, and all of a sudden we heard Bert shoot with the rifle, He took a shot, and we both got up and looked towards him, and we asked Bert, we said, Bert, what you're doing? He said, we might be floating around a long time. I'm trying to get some seals.
Oh, he's gonna hunt.
He wasn't even afraid.
No.
He was hunting. He was thinking of eating. He said, we might be out here a long time, so we need something to eat.
Yeah.
So he was hunting seals. And, we didn't find it funny at the time, but anyway, we sat around, and while we were sitting around, a polar bear jumped out of the water right beside us, maybe 75 yards from us. Big polar bear too.
Yeah.
But we never even bothered with it. We were so worried.
Yeah.
We just watched it run across that chunk, guys, and it went and jumped in the water on the other side. Anyway, Bert came back and he said, let's say a prayer. So Bert started praying, for safety and that. And as soon as he finished praying, the wind went down.
Yeah.
No more wind, and the wind switched.
Yeah.
From behind us. And after a while, we started seeing a little bit of white across. We were drifting back to the mainland, main ice.
Yeah.
And while we were drifting, Bert kind of started giggling. And we asked Bert, what's wrong, Bert? He said, well, I was just thinking. 2 days ago, I was floating around in the ship in Vancouver. Now I'm floating around in the chunk ice.
Yeah. How scary,
it never even scared him. I don't know. I don't know if he was acting but he wasn't afraid at all.
Yeah.
And but we noticed we started drifting, and the ice was closing up from the west. It was in a V shape, but it was piling up. That's a hit. It was piling up high, really high. We were watching it with binoculars. And we know if we hit that ice, the big ice behind us is going to come and crush us too, bring us to that high ice. We have to try and find a place to get out. So we started watching with binoculars to see if we could find a spot across when we were getting closer. Yeah. And we saw a spot that looks like we could climb out with skidoos. Only spot. So we kept our eye on it with binoculars, and we keep moving our skidoos. Because it's kind of sideways too.
Yeah.
We were getting closer and closer and closer to it. So finally we reached it. It was about 6 feet, 8 feet wide. Yeah. When we took off, Lenny was first, and Bert and me. We all made it out safely, and when we climbed over that ridge, climbed to the other side where it's smooth, we looked back and all that ice piled up that we were on, high. Crazy, yeah. And the other ice that's behind us, the higher ice, piling up, pushing it up. Yeah. We just made it, somebody was really watching us. Really? So that's... anyway, me and Lenny said we will never hunt polar bear again in our lives. But we forgot all about it after we got to safe ice. Started looking around for bear. That's crazy. Yeah. So the show is ending, and I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing stories. I really enjoyed it. We've been trying for a while to get you on the show. I'm happy that we did it. And I'm just going to close out the show now. Yeah. Yeah, okay. So thank you, Frank, for coming on and being on the show today. And we'll see you guys all in the next show. Bye. Sure, yeah. Easy. Thanks. Easy. Yeah, 1 hour. That easy. Yeah. You got so much more to share. I know.